Be speaking exclusively to Wilson Sossion, who is the chairman of NAT, telling us why that strike was called off and why it was on in the first place. But we've got much more lined up for you on KTN Sunday night, including this. In sports, Kenyans watch as the Kenya Open title goes to Yordi Garcia. Thanks for joining me tonight. I am Ann Kiguta. The planned teachers' strike has been called off. The industrial action was averted after the Kenya National Union of Teachers, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers, KAPET, and the government agreed to dialogue to allow Form 1 admissions. NAT says that the government has undertaken to initiate the process of degazetting the contentious legal notice that is the basis of the latest 25 billion shilling demand made by teachers.
Just hours before the start of the planned teachers' strike, and the government has managed to keep the teachers in class.
We are asking our teachers tomorrow, the 18th of February 2013, we expect them all to be on duty.
Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo ended the deadlock following a 3-day meeting with NAT and TSC officials at the Manzoni Lodge in Machakos.
The Minister have accepted to initiate the TSC to immediately initiate the legal process of degazetting legal notice number 16, which has been, which halted or stopped the teachers from getting their allowances.
The teachers are demanding a 25 billion shilling payout agreed upon in 1997. Under the 1997 deal, teachers were to get a 50% rise of minimum basic pay on house allowance, 20% on medical allowance, and 10% on commuter allowance. The allowances were, however, suspended by the NAC government in 2003 through legal notice number 16. The issue was left out during last year's negotiations over the 3-week teachers' strike, since the validity of the legal notice was a matter before Parliament. Before the expiry of the term of the 10th Parliament, the Committee on Delegated Legislation recommended that the legal notice be repealed, and that is the teachers' basis for the latest demand.
We've been able to agree on the way forward. And the way forward, if respected, it shall not invite any disputes again in future.
The decision by NAT to call off the strike came hours after Kotu appealed to NAT to give dialogue a chance.
We are asking and appealing to our brothers to put their strike on a hold.
The strike had also faced opposition from the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, which termed it as ill-timed. Public schools are still recovering from the effects of a 3-week teachers' strike in September last year that saw the rescheduling of national examinations, revision of the school calendar, a delay in the release of KCPE results, and the late admission of Form 1 students. Teachers went back to school after the government agreed to pay 13.5 billion shillings in basic salaries. The evening announcement by NAT comes as a relief to players in the education sector. But with a 25 billion shilling demand by teachers, the government will not be resting easy. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
And the national chairman of the Kenya National Union of Teachers joins me now, Mr. Wilson Sossion. Thank you so much for coming in today. You know, even among those who support the teachers' movement and their agitation for better wages, there's a lot of distress over the fact that you are calling for industrial action so close to a general election. In fact, I think the word that has been used often is the issue of civil strife brewing so close to a poll. Why did you pick this particular time?
I want to say we did not come out to press for our rights basically because there are general elections. If you look at the genesis of the dispute, it is arising from an industrial action that was staged last year. And we had a very clear agreement with the government that we refer the matter to the Delegated Committee on Legislation of the National Assembly. And its outcome would be binding to both parties, of which the ruling was tabled in the National Assembly on the 3rd of January this year by the Honorable Kiema Kilonzo. And therefore, we were duty-bound as a union to proceed and demand for our rights. We cannot give away our rights simply because there's a general election.
But certainly you would have to appreciate the fact that elections unfortunately have the connotation of some kind of violence, and people would fear that this would be the first of a series of actions that could very easily be hijacked by politicians or by other groups.
We issued a strike notice, and mark the law. Strike notice, 7-day notice, is a window of opportunity for dialogue to avert the strike. And this is exactly and precisely what we have achieved. And in any case, we shall not have that strike because we have achieved what we wanted, and we are now in agreement with the government, and we anticipate to proceed with normal business. I want to tell Kenyans and assure everybody, teachers, we are law-abiding, and we shall pursue our businesses, our duties, regardless of whether they are general elections or any other extraordinary activity.
Yeah,
while at the same time...
Sorry, I must interject there. You've talked about being law-abiding, and I want to come in at that point because part of the concern is this, that it has now become the mainstay of your union whenever there's an issue to call for industrial action. And it seems to be either a lack of fresh ideas as to how to address genuine teacher concerns, and it is... it causes concern because it is agitating the public. Is there no other way to address your issues other than to say we're going to down our tools?
No sensible trade union anywhere in the world would seek a strike option as a means of achieving benefits for their members. But when we get
which sensible ways have you chosen other than strike action?
We've been through negotiations, and negotiations are not moving, and on the other side of the party, things were not moving very well. And therefore, the laws of this country and the constitution of this country gives us the benefits and the rights to utilize strike action as a means of achieving our rights. And we've used that over time, and it works quite well. We have used in this situation, if government did not yield to the Gazette, the legal notice number 16, and reinstate our allowances. Today, I can assure you, after midnight, the teachers of the Republic of Kenya would have boycotted work. And
that is my point exactly, Mr. Sossion. It's not, I don't think the question is whether or not what you're agitating for is deserved. I think it's a question of tact.
Now,
and that it feels that under the leadership...
No,
don't ask me to tell you because I asked the questions here.
And I shall answer.
Yes, thank you. The question has been the tact used by your particular leadership at NUT has always been about strike, strike, strike. And there's a question whether or not there is no other way to do this. Is there no other way that teachers who we look up to in this society can find an amicable way to sit at the table and resolve their issues? And again, the issue being that it is so close to an election that you are calling for this particular industrial action.
Our experience all over the continent and even globally is that teachers are rarely listened to by the government because of their sheer numbers. And even in as much as we go through meaningful negotiations, governments tend to be very hard in yielding to our issues, to the extent that even right now, the teachers of this country, compared to other government workers with equivalent qualifications, are far behind in terms of benefits simply because of their numbers. And therefore, we are left with no option, because if we keep quiet and we pretend to be peaceful and have very excellent manners around the country, our teachers will suffer. Therefore, the public must understand, and everyone must understand. Parents
did not understand you. In fact, the parents' union said that on this one they were not going to support you because already the school calendar had already been... no, let me finish. Already the school calendar had been so much ruined by the previous strike action, and then you called for another, and they were worried. And thankfully, you've talked about Form 1 selection and agreeing for that to go ahead. Why wouldn't you place your action at a time when it doesn't hurt the people who are supposed to benefit from your services?
There have been arguments that we pick the examination time.
And that you punish the children. It's not government who suffers.
Now we wanted this issue sorted out. We wanted this issue sorted out way in advance, so that even during the budget making process, all this can be factored, so that we can avert any other disputes in future, and we are doing it on time, and we've done it promptly. One thing that everybody should appreciate is that our case has been very highly genuine, and has been genuine because we have sat, we've negotiated, there were issues, we have signed agreements. We cannot sign agreements if there were no disputes and if there were no issues. And at this stage, we are happy because we have agreed with government, we have signed agreements, and we have urged our teachers to proceed with their duties, and we look forth to better days for the teachers of this country.
What's the way forward? What's the way forward in this particular matter? I know you've agreed that the various instruments will sit down and discuss it.
Number one, we've agreed that the employer, the Teacher Service Commission and government will put in place mechanisms to degazette the legal notice number 16, which was our issue, central issue of contestation. And that we are satisfied, and that we will proceed with the employer to engage and come up with a framework of acceptable implementation of the remaining 3 components of allowance, and even as we prepare to negotiate our allowances. That is exactly what we are looking for. We are not asking for anything beyond there. And therefore, if that is done as we progress, then we have no issues.
But like I said earlier, I don't think the issue for many Kenyans sitting at home and watching this bulletin is whether or not teachers deserve those allowances. Certainly, I think we would all agree they do. The question has always been tacked. Nonetheless, I thank you so much for coming to the studio.
But I want to tell you one thing.
I thank you for your time.
We are entitled to our rights. We
Yes.
want to enjoy the provisions in the Constitution, and we shall execute them at such time that we deem it is necessary, without seeking for guidance or direction, or we have seen some people.
I would love to continue this conversation with you. Every time we sit down, we can have a very long chat about this. But again, thank you for coming in. We certainly hope for an amicable solution that doesn't hurt the people who need your services the most, which is the children. Wilson Sossion, thank you.